Good evening. My name is Jennifer Kane, and on behalf of the Kettering Board of Education, our administrators and staff, I would like to welcome you to the 2022 induction ceremony for the Chester A. Roush Educational Hall of Fame. Tonight is a really special event for our inductees, and we are thrilled to have you here in attendance tonight to share in this honor with them. In 1975, the Kettering Board of Education established the Chester A. Roush Educational Hall of Fame to place in perpetuity, for remembrance and inspiration, those individuals who exemplify the life and career of distinguished educator Chester A. Roush. Kettering City Schools and the Kettering community are genuinely indebted to Mr. Roush for his legacy of exemplary service to the students, district employees, and community at large. To commemorate the high ideals that characterized his life and career, a committee reviewed numerous nominations and selected 3 inductees who have distinguished themselves in their contribution to education in the Kettering City Schools. I would like to recognize those individuals who served on the selection committee. Superintendent Mindy McCarty-Stewart, KEA President B.J. Isbrand, Kettering City Councilman Bruce Duke, Dr. Jerry Barnett, Mrs. Penny Meyer, and Mr. Charlie Scherholtz. Many, if not all, of the selection committee are in attendance tonight, and I would like to thank you again for your service. I would also like to recognize school and city officials joining us this evening. Board President Toby Henderson, Board Vice President Mark Martin, and board members Jim Ambrose and Lori Parks. Superintendent Mindy McCarty-Stewart, Kettering Mayor Peggy Lehner, and City Council members Jackie Fisher and Tony Klepaz, as well as Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning Dan Von Handorf. I would also like to offer a special thank you to our Coordinator of Community Relations, Mrs. Carrie Basson, for all of her hard work in getting us all here tonight. We all know we wouldn't be here without Carrie Basson, so thank you. We know that Chet Roush's life centered around education. As a teacher, coach, administrator, and superintendent, as well as serving on the Ohio Board of Education for 12 years, 3 of those being president, holding the position of president of the Ohio Superintendents Association, and receiving the Distinguished Service Award from the National Association of School Boards of Education. In some of the Roush Hall of Fame files, I found a document on Chet's upbringing, which was written by his daughter, Jean Roush Wolfe. I believe his background shaped him as an educator and mentor, and I wanted to share a little of his history with you. Chet was born on a small farm in southern Ohio in 1918. When Chet was 8 years old, his father died tragically, leaving his young mother with 6 young children, those being 5 daughters and Chet. With little options, she sold off the farm and moved the family to Winchester. She rented a small diner with a 2-bedroom apartment above. She knew she could cook the food, and with the children helping her, she would also be able to keep her family together and feed the growing children. Local town folks looked after Chet and served as his earliest mentors. As Chet grew up, he began to excel in athletics. During his high school years, teacher and coach Burley Grimes served as a male role model for Chet, encouraging him to apply to college, a dream no other family member had ever tried. He was offered a full scholarship to Alfred E. Holbrook College in Manchester to play football, basketball, and baseball. While in college, professor and coach Mendel Beatty saw within Chet the makings of a teacher who could easily and honestly connect with students. With a major in history and a minor in physical education, Chet graduated in 1940. As World War II was raging, Chet enlisted into officers training and was commissioned as second lieutenant in the Army Air Corps as a physical training instructor for the airmen and pilots. Thus began his career as an educator and coach. After the war, he pursued minor league baseball and made his way onto the St. Louis Cardinals major league team. It was a super opportunity, but Chet's devotion to family brought him back to Ohio, where his wife and young child were. He turned to education, the strong avenue that led him through his life. Teaching and coaching in many different school districts in Ohio, Chet found his own ability to make a difference in young people's lives. His humble background allowed him to understand the needs of families, students, and teachers. And the special teachers and coaches who served as role models and mentors to him gave Chet the foundation to impact the lives of students, staff, and community members. It is in this spirit that the inductees are selected for the Chester A. Roush Educational Hall of Fame. Now, before we induct our current class, I would like to ask all members of the Hall of Fame who are in attendance tonight to please stand and allow us to thank you again for your significant contribution to the education of students attending Kettering City Schools. I know you're out there. If you're a Roush Hall of Fame member, stand up. And now on to our ceremony. I would like to invite Dave Timpone to the podium to introduce our first inductee, Diane Duvall.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Dave Timpone, and I was the principal at Orchard Park School for quite a while. And for 16 of those years, I had the pleasure of working with Diane Duvall. And now I am honored to have the opportunity to share a few thoughts about my friend, coworker, and Chester A. Roush Educational Hall of Fame recipient with you here tonight. As some of you know, because you've been up here giving these introductions, you wonder where you can even start, how you can even highlight someone's brilliant career of 30 or more years in just a few minutes. All you can really do is to try to paint a picture about what the recipient meant to our students, to our staff, and to our schools. And since we're talking music, I'll put this in the form of a 4-part choral piece and offer my remarks in 4 sections: bass, tenor, alto, and soprano. Here's the bass part, what we heard from other teachers. Diane received letters of support for this award from many people. Thanks, Melissa Gallagher, for your part in this. And when I read through them, there were obvious common themes. Teachers who joined our music education staff after Diane was already a veteran here described her as a mentor, a listening ear, always ready to lend a hand. Jessica Stark, who replaced Diane at Orchard Park in 2017, talked about how Diane sat down with her for hours to plan her first May Day program, a venerable tradition at that school. Newer teachers need mentors, including unofficial ones, and Diane stepped up for that, not because she was asked to, but because, and I'm using the words these teachers used, she is generous, understanding, kind, helpful, compassionate, insightful, and encouraging. That's quite an impressive collection of superlatives from the other music teachers. Other teachers who worked in the same schools with Diane had plenty to say about this colleague with whom they interacted every day and knew well. They talked about the way she brought out the best in kids, how she was such a kind and thoughtful coworker, how patient, calm, and gentle she was. One of them described her as a treasure to the Orchard Park staff. Here's the tenor part. I stopped in Diane's room about once a week, and whether it was kindergarten students repeating rhythms or 4th graders practicing a folk dance to Shady Grove, I always saw a class in the palm of Diane's hand. She had a way with kids that is easy to recognize but hard to teach. It's all about relationships, and she made them. Some of the students that struggled with reading and math shown in music class, teachers saw Diane pick up on this, and she made a point of developing their talents by highlighting them in a program or helping them to try out for the Kettering Children's Choir or encouraging them to get involved with music in middle school. The same went for students who were shy. I'm getting ahead of myself, but one student told about when she was too shy to make friends, she learned from Diane that what she couldn't say in speech, she could say in song. Music speaks the beauty that words cannot express, right? There was always a joyful noise in that music room, and not just during school hours. It wasn't at all unusual to see Diane working with someone or some group well after dismissal, getting ready for something important. We heard from parents whose children Diane taught maybe 20, 25 years ago. Here again, common themes. Diane went above and beyond. She instilled a love of music in my child that endures to this day. She inspired my children to sing, write, play, and dance to music from the age of 5. She was responsible for my kids joining the middle school and high school bands, and for one of them to major in music education at Miami. Here's the alto part, what we heard from former students, and we heard loudly and vividly about what Diane meant to her students from her former students, and some of these people are in their 30s now anyway. Ms. Duvall brought a love of music and the arts into my life at a young age. I played in the middle school and high school bands and continue to play after college. And how about this one? She inspired me to be a kind and joyful person in everything I do. I would not be the person I am today without her influence in my life. What more could we expect of any teacher, everybody? We've all heard that old quotation, a teacher affects eternity. She can never tell where her influence stops. Diane is an example of that quotation lived out. I read testimonials like that over and over, again in just slightly different words. Her passion and warmth inspired so many choices in my life and as a performer. She gave me and my siblings a hunger for as much music as we could fit into our lives. Maybe 20 years after leaving 5th grade, an Orchard Park graduate can still sing the 50 states in alphabetical order, name the instruments in Peter and the Wolf and their characters, sing the Mayor's Carol, which is a May Day song, and more. Diane's influence stuck. We heard, I fell in love with composers like Camille Saint-Saëns, and I fell in love with performing, fell in love with music. Today in my profession, I use what I learned from Diane Duvall every week. Things like compassion, listening, leadership. She changed my life and that of countless others. And here's the soprano part, programs. And we heard a ton about the programs Diane led. If you're a music teacher, you do programs. May Day at Orchard Park is not just a tradition, it's an unstoppable force that goes back to the early days of the school, I think all the way back to 1956 when the school went up. Every grade and the school chorus performs for the community. It's a huge project for the music teacher. The whole school sings a couple of special songs every year, like the Mayor's Carol, and if you're here for Orchard Park, I'm sure you remember it. With howlin' toe sing Mary-O, with howlin' toe sing Mary. And also Hey May, join with me if you remember it, Orchard Park. Clap, hey, 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 stomp, hey, 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 snap, hey, 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 slap, hey, 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 step, hey, 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 yell, hey, 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 May, what do you say? And the high point was the 3rd graders wrapping the maple, bringing mom to tears, to the tune of Country Gardens. As one parent said, Diane always made it perfect for everyone. Even when a kid stepped on the power chord and a song with a nice recorded backing track became an a cappella piece. There were Veterans Day programs too, and one year a doctor who had been Ronald Reagan's personal physician on Air Force One was the guest speaker. He wrote that was the sweetest and most touching Veterans Day ceremony I would ever hope to attend. The songs were remarkably rehearsed and well done, and the students' essays, poems, and letters were heartfelt and thought out. I thought that kind of teaching was becoming rare in public schools. I am heartened to know that it was obviously very wrong. 2 former students said that one of their favorite elementary school memories was their roles as a dingo and a wombat in the holiday musical Kookaburra's Christmas Down Under. Who remembers that after 20 or 25 years? Diane's students do. Diane threw herself into these projects. which had the extra bonus of bringing our families into school a few times a year to enjoy these performances that Diane put together with so much effort and dedication. They were student-centered and taught life skills of perseverance, composure, respect for traditions, and appreciation of other cultures. Diane served our schools and our students for 30 years with great heart and with great skill and with great love. We've heard how she touched the lives of everyone around her, and to this day, her teaching remains, as one person put it, a constant connection and source of shared joy. I have just enough time left to butcher Diane's favorite song, or one of them, and sum all this up. We say, thanks, Diane. We're so happy for you. You touched more lives than you ever knew. So take a bow, old friend. And Josh and Louise. And now I'm through. Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, Dave, thank you so much for all your words and your kindness. And I didn't do any of that alone. I had so many wonderful teachers and people working with me, and my daughters helping with scenery, and my family coming, always supporting me. I have a couple things I wanted to say. And the print's really large, so it looks like there's a lot here, but there's really not. Okay. All right. Dave, I was trying not to cry, but sometimes it feels good to cry a little bit, to remember all those wonderful times. I'd like to extend a special thank you to Melissa Gallagher and all the many people who work behind the scenes on my behalf. This is a remarkable surprise and honor, and I am so grateful. I don't know if I'm going to get through this, but I'm going to do my best. I didn't know Mr. Roush as a teacher or principal or superintendent of Kettering City Schools. I got to know him as the women's softball coach at Christ United Methodist Church. We were the Christ Church rookies. And what I remember most about Coach Roush is the sparkle in his eyes when he told us to show up for every practice because we're counting on you. Work hard and have fun. He had this ability to make you feel like you could do anything. I know my grandchildren will have a hard time imagining their Graham doing a sport, a real sport. But because of Coach Roush, I was a pretty good catcher, just saying. I have many happy memories of Coach Roush and Coach Conley and all the fun we had on the baseball field. Several years later, I went through a difficult time in my life, and I needed to get back to teaching full-time. I had 3 little girls depending on me. I taught privately and directed the children's choir at church, but had been away from public school teaching for 10 years. After learning of openings in Kettering City Schools, I applied and had the good fortune to interview with Mr. Bob McCoy and Claire Miller, who was the music coordinator at that time. I soon found out that I would be teaching at Van Buren Junior High, the best junior high in the state of Ohio. You must have worked at Van Buren with Mr. McCoy, or went there as my son-in-law John did, because this is the way Mr. McCoy started each day on the morning announcements. My daughters reminded me of the ice cream sandwiches Mr. McCoy used to give them when they come to visit, and they all called him Uncle Bob. I thought about him many times over the years. I'm also reminded during my first year at VB, I'd often come home in tears, and my girls would say, "Don't worry, Mommy, you'll get better at this." It's true. Things did get better. Things got better. Back in the day, the chorus, band, and orchestra traveled to Kings Island on chartered buses to celebrate the end of the school year. One year, I thought it would be fun to bring my youngest daughter along. As you can imagine, the noise on the bus was deafening until my 8-year-old snatched the microphone from the bus driver and started imitating Jim Carrey, Robin Williams, and reciting lines from the movie Mrs. Doubtfire. You could have heard a pin drop. Beth is now a writer and a stand-up comedian, and I'm pretty sure her first big gig was on that chartered bus 30 years ago. When I joined the staff at Orchard Park, I met the most dedicated teachers and staff and parents, and I found my heart. I also noticed the fabulous jumpers, you know, the teacher jumpers, with the big pockets and the appliques of apples, pumpkins, snowmen, that my new friends, Linda Evans and Julie Eccleston, wore, and I knew I was in the right place. Our principal, Dave Timpone, is an accomplished musician, as many of you know. Dave offered to accompany the chorus for holiday and May Day programs, piano or guitar, whatever I needed. Some of my happiest memories are of Dave strumming the guitar, me at the piano, and the kids singing in a big open field behind the school celebrating May Day. One special event we did together for many years was taking the chorus to Lincoln Park Manor during the holidays to sing for the residents. On several occasions, we saw Mr. and Mrs. Roush, but there's one year that really stands out to me. After the chorus performed, Dave walked over and asked the kids, "How many of you have been to Roush Stadium?" They smiled and wildly raised their hands. And then Dave said, "How'd you like to meet Mr. Roush?" As Dave was speaking, I looked over to see Mr. Roush standing up with his walker in front of him, with that amazing sparkle still in his eyes. These were his Kettering kids, and you could see that special connection he had with these boys and girls. In closing, I would like to say that having my name anywhere near Mr. Roush's name is a great honor and one that I will treasure. What he said many years ago to our softball team holds true for the teachers I have admired in Kettering. You show up every day. You work hard. You know others are depending on you. And hopefully you have fun. And on that note, I have a shout out to Matt Kohler, who made my last 5 years in Kettering memorable and fun. I would also like to say thank you to my 3 daughters, Megan, Hannah, and Bethy, who have always cheered me on from the sidelines. Without you, I wouldn't be standing here tonight.
You know, I am so lucky that I have the privilege of notifying all of the inductees. And when I was talking with Diane, I shared with her the names of those individuals who had submitted letters of support on her behalf. And what struck me was how Diane told stories about every single one of those individuals like it was yesterday, and how they impacted her life. They are like family to her, those folks that had written those letters in support of her nomination. And I got the distinct impression while I was talking with Diane that she viewed every single child in every single class that she taught as family, just like she appears to have treated or feels of the names of those letters, on those letters. What a remarkable educator, and I want to congratulate you again. Thank you, Diane. Next up is Ken Lackey. He is the retired Director of Business Services here in Kettering, and he will introduce our second inductee, Louise Easterly.
Evening, everybody. Let me put you to rest. There won't be singing to this because nobody wants to hear that. If I could sing like Dave, I would sing, but I can't do that. First, let me congratulate all 3 of our honorees tonight, Diane, Josh, and Louise, all very well deserving. And congratulate the committee on making excellent selections this year on people that are going into the hall. It is truly my pleasure to get to introduce Louise to you this evening. Louise was supervisor of food and nutrition for Kettering City Schools for nearly 20 years. I was fortunate to work with Louise as Director of Business Services for 19 and a half of those years. She came to us with tremendous credentials, having been food service supervisor, manager in other districts. And my predecessor as business director, Paul Weatherspoon, was extremely fortunate to convince Louise to come work for us in 1999. Supervisor of food nutrition is a unique position in the school district. There's a lot of different challenging responsibilities, much different than about any position in the district, and Louise was extraordinary at every segment of her position. Probably the biggest challenge of any food service supervisor faces is having a menu that and planned meals which meet the ever-changing federal requirements, and creating meals which students will actually eat and like to eat. As we all know, healthy and taste good does not always go together, especially with children. Louise was always very creative with breakfast and lunch offerings. She was open to new ideas. She sought out the input of others to improve her meal offerings, and she was also very innovative and open to new ideas on how to make her department more successful. I'm going to touch on some of the contributions Louise made to the Kettering schools and our students, knowing that there are far more that I could bring up that I don't have time to talk about tonight. There was a quote in the Dayton Daily News when Louise was hired for this position. She said, "You have to stay in touch with the kids." And she did that every day that she was here. She always thought about the kids and what she was providing for them. Louise created student advisory councils in the schools to sample menu items and give feedback on how to make breakfast and lunch program better. As we know, kids can sometimes be brutally honest. So the feedback was not always great, but she learned, and her goal was to always make the meals better for the kids and to make Kettering students healthier and meals that they like to eat. This also resulted in changes to the cafeterias, working with the students, more soups and salads and wraps being offered, as well as a burrito bar here at Fairmont. She started a grab-and-go breakfast program at Greenmont Elementary School, which resulted in many more students eating breakfast. We had very low counts there, and having kids come in and eat breakfast, being able to grab their breakfast and go to the classroom and eat, greatly increased the participation in the breakfast program. That program was later expanded to Kettering Middle School. Louise began a catering program to provide meals to Montgomery County schools. Louise teamed up with the CTC marketing program here at Fairmont with those students to open the Fairmont Coffee Bar. Research had showed that high school students that have a cup of coffee before school begins are more likely to eat breakfast and stay alert through their classes. And the coffee bar was self-sustaining. It was popular with students and staff and gave the students an opportunity to learn about all aspects of running a successful business. Louise collaborated with several agencies in providing a variety of nutrition activities for students in the schools and in their buildings. Such agencies included the Ohio Department of Education, Dorothy Lane Market, Ohio State University, Wright State University, Action for Healthy Kids, as well as local chefs. Louise was always great at working with the needs of the principals in the schools. It was a frequent occurrence for a principal to let me know how great Louise had been to work with and that she had helped them with some particular problem during the lunch period or some special event that they were having at the building. And I usually tried to take credit for that, but it was usually unsuccessful since I didn't have any idea it even happened. Louise was loved and respected by her staff across the district, many of which are here tonight to demonstrate that. She worked very hard at developing a strong staff, and our food service department is outstanding. They put the needs of students first, and they do a great job of serving those needs. And Louise deserves a lot of credit for instilling the attitude into the culture of the department. There was never more evident than when we were shut down during the pandemic. Most of our employees were home. Our food service employees were here every day, coming in, making meals, and providing meals to our students to take home. Louise is also well respected across the state and often called upon by her food and nutrition peers across the state. I said that wrong. Both for advice and to present at statewide conferences. She served in many offices in the School Nutrition Association of Ohio, including president in 2006 and 7. In addition, she was president of the Ohio Association of School Business Officials Child Nutrition Chapter of Ohio from 2009 to 2011. She also got her food service managers involved in the School Nutrition Association of Ohio to help them develop professionally in their careers. It is no small feat that even as Louise infused creativity into the district's food nutrition program, she also saw a very large department that was completely self-sufficient. Never in the 20 years that she led the Kettering Food Nutrition Department did the district have to supplement the budget. In fact, Louise was able to create a cash balance in the food service fund in the event of a rainy day. That rainy day came in March of 2020. Even though Louise had retired by then, nice timing, Louise. The financial position that she left the department in allowed it to continue providing those meals, which you mentioned earlier, and stay solvent throughout the shutdown. Louise was presented with many awards during her career. I'll mention just a couple of those. In 2008, her recipe for chicken Alfredo with a twist, developed in conjunction with Van Buren students, was a USDA Recipe Challenge semifinalist nationally. It was one of the top 15 recipes in the Recipes for Healthy Kids Challenge, held in conjunction with First Lady Michelle Obama's Let's Move initiative. In 2008, she earned a Healthier U.S. School Challenge Award, the only district in Ohio to earn that award. And in 2011, she earned the same award as only one of 4 districts in Ohio to earn that award. That award recognizes schools that promote healthy eating habits and physical fitness among their students. It also includes an invitation to a presentation at the White House, that White House. It was always great working with Louise. She worked as a team solving problems. We worked as a team solving problems. She had a great attitude every day. She was and still is upbeat and positive. She always looks on the bright side of things and has a great sense of humor. There was one thing that made Louise nervous. All food service operations are audited by the USDA every 3 years, and I could see her getting nervous as that got closer each time. During these audits, the inspectors visit every kitchen and inspect every facet of the operation for compliance. From the nutritional values of the food, the temperatures of the hot food, to the cleanliness of the kitchen, to whether servers are wearing gloves at the proper time, and anything else they may see during an inspection. It is a long, extensive process. And even though these made Louise nervous, as they would anyone looking over your shoulders like that, I sat in on many post-office audit conferences, and the results were always the same. The inspectors were always highly complimentary of both Louise and the entire Kettering food service operation. It was a frequent comment from the inspectors that they always liked coming to Kettering because they knew things were done right here. In summary, Louise's contributions to the students and staff of the Kettering schools and to her profession were many. Her commitment to championing healthy, tasty, kid-friendly breakfasts and lunches contributed every day to our students' learning and growth. I now introduce you to a tremendous professional, a better person, and my friend, Louise Easterly.
Dang, Ken, it's like you almost, did you read my notes? Oh, gosh, I'm a little bit nervous because yes, I have received some awards, but nothing like this one. This is extra special. But Jennifer, you're behind me, I have to say something. When I got the phone call last month from Jennifer, I usually don't answer the phone. When it's a phone number I don't recognize. So something told me to answer the phone that night. And when she said, "Hi, this is Jennifer Kane," and I'm thinking, who's Jennifer Kane? I thought it was another one of those spam calls that was gonna either solicit political information or get my credit card, I don't know. But as we're chatting about retirement, it's like, oh, Jennifer Kane, Jennifer's from Kettering. What the heck is she calling me for? And so as we were chatting, I thought, oh, you got to be kidding me. You must have the wrong person. And Jennifer said, you were the supervisor of food and nutrition, weren't you? And I said, yeah, that's me. So I just like silently let it soak in, and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm just so humbled and just delighted to be with such great so we were honored at Greenmont with a ceremony. USDA representatives actually came to Greenmont, and we were honored with that award then. But our work was not done because I wasn't satisfied. We had to conquer the middle school and the high school menus. And it took me 3 years to get the middle school and high school up to speed. So we did that challenge as well, but it wasn't received overly receptive, because gone were the days when Chick-fil-A deliveries, they were eliminated. We had pizza deliveries, they were eliminated, and oh my gosh, what a crime. We had to eliminate French fries from having, we did have French fries 5 times a week. So we reduced that down to 1. I thought we were going to get crucified. But the kids, the high school students, did not revolt, so I was happy about that. But the one where we accomplished the middle school and the high school, that probably was my shining moment, because we did go to the White House. And I was able to shake hands with Michelle. And the most satisfying part in all that is what we accomplished at Kettering. It wasn't mandatory, it was voluntary. And I think it set the standard for, yes, it can be done. You can create healthier menus, and the kids will eat them. But it took a lot of work. And fast forward, we were ahead of the game, because the very next year, in 2012, don't you know, USDA made these standards that we had to meet. They became mandatory. So it was a feather in our cap when we had other districts come to Kettering to see how we were making it work. And my last accomplishment that I wanted to emphasize was, again, by USDA, and it was a recipe challenge for the chicken Alfredo with a twist. And if any of you have ever prepared, or you know, chicken Alfredo is not the most healthiest entree to have. So, but I love to take a recipe and tweak it and make it healthier. So it was a recipe that we used cream of chicken soup with fat-free milk. And the twist was we used rotini noodles instead of fettuccine noodles. And again, USDA had to come and they judged our entree, this chicken Alfredo with a twist, and it came to Van Buren. And we had to have a chef, we had to have the students vote on it, and by golly, we ended up as a semifinalist. Didn't win the grand prize, but that was okay, because I was just happy that the kids enjoyed our new entree. My entire 40 years has been feeding children, and oh, what a joy it has been. I'm so glad that I picked a career that became a passion, and how much I loved it. But I especially loved being at Kettering City Schools because of the teamwork, and I don't think a lot of things would have been possible if I didn't have teamwork all around. But I wanted to end with 2 stories that have touched me in regards to the passion that I have in kids, with kids and eating. I love to go out to schools, and so this one day I was at Greenmont, and I observed a little boy not eating his lunch. And he had on his tray a yogurt and an apple that was just sitting there uneaten. And I went up to him and I said, "You're not eating today, or you're not going to eat everything?" And he said, "No, I can't. My mom asked me to bring home some food for my little sister because we don't have a lot to eat." And it just, tore me apart. And the other was at JFK. I was doing a nutrition activity class after school. And I said to the students, I said, "What did you have for dinner last night?" And one little girl proudly raised her hand. She said, "I had macaroni and cheese." And I thought, "Oh, that's interesting. There's many ways to fix macaroni and cheese. How'd you fix your macaroni and cheese?" She said, "Well, it was me. I was cooking. I was the cook because my mom was at work." And what she was talking about, and she said, "Oh, it's so easy. You just peel off the top and you put it in the microwave." I had no idea what she was talking about. And so, of course, I had to go to the grocery store shortly after that, and I thought, I'll be darned. There's that little cup of macaroni and cheese that little girl was talking about. I didn't even know such a thing existed. But I share these two stories because poor nutrition and hunger is so prevalent. It's a lot more prevalent than many of us realize. And it's very real. And so to Jennifer, and the committee, it just touches my heart because you notice that food service is part of the educational process. And that means a lot to me. Hungry children cannot learn. And I feel that we were very much of an important part of the education process. And I so appreciate this acknowledgement and this recognition. So if any of you ever have an opportunity to support child nutrition or hungry children, perhaps donate to a school that we need lunch money funds for kids that show up with no lunch money, or the backpack program. I hope the backpack program is still growing strong. So thank you so much for this award. I will treasure this day forever. Thank you. I will be, for any of you that like to go to craft shows, I will be there at Fairmont Craft Show. I love to bake, so I will have homemade goodies there. Kahlua truffles and...
Congratulations, Louise. Now I want to know whether you stole my notes, because some of the things that I'm going to say here fit right along with the end of your presentation. I mentioned earlier that the criteria for Roush Hall of Fame states that individuals will be selected who have distinguished themselves in their contribution to education in the Kettering City Schools. And a lot of times we automatically think of teachers in the classroom. But there are individuals like Louise who work tirelessly behind the scenes and make such a significant and positive impact on a daily basis to thousands of students. Just think about the tens of thousands, or probably even hundreds of thousands, of students who, because of Louise's drive, were nourished, fueled, and ready to learn. That's a big, big deal. So congratulations, Louise. Next, I would like to invite Dory Deskalakis. Did I pronounce that right, Dory? Okay, it's Dory D, which is how I have always referred to her. And she will introduce our third inductee, Josh Stuckey.
Thanks.
Sorry.
No worries, no worries. Hi. I want to first congratulate all of the inductees that are being honored tonight. Kettering City Schools is a reflection of those who get up every day and do the hard work, bringing their best for the greater good. Thank you, Diane, Louise, and Josh, for your service. It's amazing how the little things we do each day make such a huge difference in the long run. Tonight, I have the distinct honor and privilege of introducing Joshua J. Stuckey. Where to start? Well, first of all, if you do not have the pleasure of knowing Josh, I highly recommend you Google his name. Josh's name is synonymous with service and community. His Ruby Girls nonprofit organization has raised over $2 million for HIV and AIDS research in the past 30 years. He is a well-known human rights advocate and champion for the LGBTQ community. He's an accomplished speaker, business owner. On September 14th of this year, he was named by Ohio Business Magazine as one of the top 500 most influential people in the whole state of Ohio in the area of philanthropy and nonprofits. And in July, Josh was named to the governing board of the prestigious Dayton Foundation. He does so much good for others. Google him, seriously. You'll be amazed. Tonight, however, it is not welcome to your life, Josh Stuckey. It's not. It's a night to remember where it all started, before he was Googleable. A night to remember how he made a difference to Kettering City Schools and all the lives he touched in the 20 years here. I met Josh in 1995. He was hired at Moraine Meadows and moved to Indian Riffle, where I was teaching. Our principal was the esteemed Rusty Clifford, and multi-age classrooms were all the rage. Kettering had a few. Rusty thought that Josh and I would make a great teaching team, and he was so right. Josh and I got to work. We visited numerous multi-age classrooms in Kettering and other areas, and we transformed an old music room into a huge classroom. Josh, Brent, Josh's sweet husband, and I spent our whole summer getting that room ready for the 54th and 5th graders we were going to teach. I can honestly say that teaching side by side with Josh were some of my best teaching days. And when you work side by side with someone every day, you really get to know them. Josh came in every single day with a smile on his face, a song in his heart, and a pep in his step. He is the most energetic person I know. In fact, Lori Bunshold, who is sitting right there in the audience, a teacher at Press, went to see him in a musical and witnessed him doing a round-off cartwheel in the middle of a scene. He will be 60 in December. I mean, seriously. We were a team, Josh and I, so much so that he even gained 20 pounds of sympathy weight when I was pregnant with my first child. Because when Josh is in, he is in. He is the biggest cheerleader I know. He is always encouraging others with his positivity and light. He fights hard for the underdogs and those who are compromised. In fact, Jonathan Cooper, a former principal of Southdale and current superintendent of Mason City Schools, told me that one of his best memories of Josh was how he cast one of his students with autism in his yearly play. Jonathan said Josh was a masterpiece to watch. Josh coached that child into pure brilliance. A kid who could hardly speak to his teacher was calm and confident on stage. That kid rocked it out because of Josh's unyielding encouragement and guidance. And speaking of plays, Josh was very well known for them. Josh would write his own plays. He would cast teachers, staff, and kids. He would write a part sometimes with a specific person in mind. The writing, the casting, the directing, all Josh. His plays were crowd favorites year after year, and each performance was standing room only. The amount of time that he spent, not contract time, his own time, to make sure that everyone felt successful, countless hours, and all with a smile on his face. And that smile, it lights up a room. Josh's laugh is infectious. One of my favorite Maya Angelou quotes is, "People will forget what you said to them, but they will never forget how you made them feel." As people, former students, parents, peers, found out that Josh was being inducted, they reached out to me with story upon story about how Josh made them feel special, loved, encouraged, empowered, successful, like they could do anything. Just the mere mention of the name Josh Stuckey brings a smile to people's faces, a laugh, a story. Erica Blackburn said Mr. Stuckey's voice was gentle, yet he was always fun and energetic. He left a lasting impact on my life. So a lasting impact, what does that look like? Well, I'll tell you. Kelly Sharkey, now Kelly Atkins, was one of Josh's students, and when she grew up, she also served with him as a counselor at Camp Kern. She says she remembers thinking how lucky Kettering was to have Mr. Stuckey. Kelly grew up in Kettering and stayed. Her kids go to Indian Riffle. Kelly and her kids volunteer for the Kettering Backpack Program and Shoes for the Shoeless, and when her daughter Chloe got sick, it didn't slow them down. It only increased their family's desire to give back more. Chloe was even honored by the Dayton Dragons for her contributions to her community. Kelly told me that Mr. Stuckey was her inspiration. His service, his dedication to his community, his giving back. She says he continues to inspire her family today and every day. That is what a lasting impact looks like. Service is something that comes naturally to Josh. He's the youngest of 4, grew up on a farm in South Charleston, Ohio. Yeah, I had never heard of that town either. It's Clark County, Springfield, something like that. His beloved dad was a professor at Wittenberg and a coach. He passed away suddenly in 1996. His cute as a button, sweet as pie, love of his life mom just passed away this past March. She was a librarian and volunteer at the Masonic Home. Josh's brother is currently now the mayor of South Charleston. Oh, isn't he? Josh grew up with core values of love for family and others, compassion and service, and having a dad as a professor and a mom as a librarian, well, teaching was just the perfect profession. Josh is an outstanding teacher. He made learning fun and practical. Each day was an adventure with Mr. Stuckey as your teacher. He never did the same thing twice. He was always looking for relevant ways to reach his students. His students wanted to come to school. They wanted to be in class. They wanted to learn. So many former students count Mr. Stuckey as the best teacher they've ever had, hands down. And don't just take it from the kids' point of view. Rusty Clifford, who retired after 50 years in education, who has observed and evaluated over 1,000 staff, says that absolutely, positively, beyond the shadow of a doubt, that Josh was the best elementary teacher he's ever worked with, marking his classroom as an educational experience. Thank goodness Josh is now teaching at Wright State University, teaching soon-to-be elementary teachers what it means to be an impactful teacher, making a mark in education still. There's really so much more. I haven't even scratched the surface. Like his kindness when a staff member was ill and how he organized a flash mob and taped it for her, and the joy that it brought her as she watched it over and over and over again. The way he was there for his Moraine students and families when Moraine was closed and absorbed by Southdale. It's really hard to explain with words the beauty of Josh. So as I wrap up, I have coined my own term for him. Life, joy, ambassador, because that's really what he is. He brought life and joy to his classroom. He brought life and joy to his students and their families. He brought life and joy to his teammates. He exudes life. He is life, and he is joy, pure joy. We need more Josh Stuckeys in our schools today. Kettering City School was so blessed to have him serve their community of learners for 20 years. It is my sincere pleasure to present Joshua Stuckey for induction into the Chester A. Roush Education Hall of Fame.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Dory. I mean, honestly, that is probably one of the best teachers Kettering will ever know, and I appreciate that so much. So, I promise I'll be quick. It's short, my list. I met Chet Roush one time. It was after one of our first day of school lunches. Do you guys remember all those? We would go, or breakfast. We'd go for our first day, we'd sit in the big auditorium, and afterwards we all got breakfast, and Chet came up to me and he said, you know, I noticed something about you. You're different. And I thought, you have no idea. So, I want to tell you that when I teach at Wright State right now, they ask me, I want to be different. I want to be a different kind of teacher. And I tell them the thing that always sticks in my mind when I taught at Indian Riffle with a great team, Karen Smiley, my God, when I saw you walk up today, I about lost myself. I really did. So good to see you. Calm down. The kids at school are asking me, how do you make it different? And we had to learn the Common Core. And I tell my kids, the more important piece is the uncommon core. It is relationships with children that matter. And they look at me like, what are you talking about? And I say, you know what, guys? There was a point in our history where if a kid broke a pencil during a test, we weren't supposed to give them another one. That's insanity, is what that is. People have infiltrated our schools to tell us how to do our jobs. And the truth is, I'm training you to tell those people you know how to do your job. That's what's important. And I see these kids, I told Brent today, some of the things I say to them, they're like, you're kind of rebellious, Mr. Stuckey. And I tell them, the kids need you to be rebellious. That's what they need. We can't sit back and continue to watch what's happening in our schools as we look at these little kids who look at us and say, I can't even get a pencil from my mom and dad. And we get upset saying, you don't know 7 times 7? They don't have a pencil. It's reality. There's so much we could do to help these kids. I digress. I want to tell you a little bit about my first moment in Kettering schools. I was working at Ruby Tuesday's restaurant. I got a phone call. There, the hostess comes up. She goes, there's a Mr. Spallrich on the phone. Do you know that guy? And I'm like, oh my God, it's the personnel director. 6 days till school is going to start. They're like, there's an opening and they want you to call him. So I'm like looking at my tables. I'm like, I got to go make a phone call. I go call Frank Spallrich. I'm like, hi, Mr. Spallrich. It's Josh Stuckey. Can you be here at 3 o'clock for an interview? I'm like, I get off work at 2:30. Can you be here at 3 o'clock? There's 2 other people interviewing. I don't know if I can do that. I can't go home. I can't get ready. Can you be here at 3 o'clock? I can be there at 3 o'clock. Get done with my tables. I run in, I sit down, and I'm looking directly at that giant ginger, Rusty Clifford. And if you knew Rusty, you know Rusty. And I look across the thing, and I'm like, I need to apologize. Like, we don't have time for, tell me what you're going to do differently than the last 2 people that interviewed. What are you going to do differently? And I'm like, I promise I won't smell like French onion soup again. I promise I won't have ketchup and mustard on my apron. I promise I will come in prepared and ready to go. And the thing I promise more than anything else is I hate to disappoint people. I hate it. So I'll do whatever you want me to do. I got home that night. Rusty called me. Oh, I was up against Julie Bodum. I mean, come on, Julie Bodum. She's a killer teacher. And the late Tom Joyner, who was an amazing teacher. It's the 3 of us up against each other. And Rusty calls, he goes, I have one more question for you. I'm like, yeah. And he goes, can you teach 32 6th graders in 6 days? I'm like, yeah, I can do it. I loved Rusty. Great man, great man. Rusty said to me in day 3, they have some coaching jobs open if you're interested. I'm like, see me as a basketball coach? Are you out of your mind? I said, what about a drama coach? He goes, so they don't have drama for little kids. I'm like, why don't they? He goes, what, do you want to start that? I'm like, let's start that. And that thing got huge. And I thank him for saying yes to me. I told Rusty the first day of school when I came in, he goes, you know, I heard you're a big singer, a big performer. Anything you want to start off your year with? And I told him how much I missed leaving that restaurant job as I sang to Rusty, goodbye, Ruby Tuesdays. I had such a great support system. They're here. Thank you, Moraine Meadows, who got me on my feet. And every day, they encouraged me and showed me the way, but they never tried to change me. And I appreciate that. I love you guys. Calm down. And I want to say, one of my biggest mentors was Jackie Geary. Who we lost. And she was the first person I ever told that I was LGBTQ. And she taught reading recovery. And she's like, it's a good thing I understand letters because I think I know what that means. And I also want to say I miss Carrie as well. I mean, those were 2 amazing teachers that are gone way too soon. When I went to Indian Riffle, I followed Rusty over there. Little did I know when I followed Rusty, he was going to desert me immediately at Indian Riffle. But again, that staff, that huge staff, there was like 77 of us that worked together, and every day we supported each other. No matter what it was, we supported each other. I love you guys on that side of the room, so thank you guys as well. I got called to go back home to Moraine Meadows, which was the most beautiful phone call. And we were down there for 3 more years. I was down there for 3 more years with you guys. And then the most dreadful day was when they said they were going to close Moraine Meadows. Something in my heart knew my time was limited. I knew. And it was because when you're teaching in a building with 100 kids, you guys know they were in food service. When you had schools that are that small, you knew every one of their names. You knew every one of their issues. You knew everything about these families. And you could make real change. So when they said they were closing, I thought, God, where am I going next? And they said, you're going to Southdale. Southdale, as you know, was Southdale. You're going to Southdale. And I'm like, wait a minute. Wait, you're sending the South Charleston, Josh Stuckey to Southdale Elementary? These people are going to freak out. And I knew Bern Schwederman was there, the world's greatest teacher, and I was like, I'm already intimidated by where you're sending me. I got sent to Southdale, and within, 6 months, those were people of my family. They were just a great group of people. They welcomed us. They welcomed our kids. It was a hard transition. It really was. It's where I met Heather McClintock, another teacher who's gone too soon. One thing I remember talking to Heather about, this came to me, Angie, and Heather. Angie Abner, cutest girl in the world. Angie, halfway down the hall, would look at me every day and go, where are we going with the kids today? And I'm like, lunch, Angie. We're going to lunch. Love her dearly. But we talked about the Uncommon Core again. And Heather goes, that's such a great thing. You should write a book and call it the Uncommon Core. And I said, I think it's almost rude to say Common Core. Our kids aren't common. They're not common. They're uncommon. They're different and they're unusual. So as I was having this conversation, I met the almighty Oz, Jonathan Cooper, the principal at Southdale Elementary. Jonathan grabbed me and told me to come into his office one day, and he said, there's been some complaints about you with some of the other teachers that you don't take anything seriously. I said, Jonathan, come on, there is nothing really that serious to take in life. It's all pretty funny. He goes, I don't think it is. And I got hysterical and started laughing. And I said, I don't know why I do, but I just do. And Jonathan goes, we're always going to have this, aren't we? And I said, we're always going to have this. Square One, the salon that I own, started booming in this era at Southdale. And I realized again, my time was ticking. And I wanted to make a difference at Southdale with the kids, like I'd done at the other schools with the plays. And we put on the most amazing shows at Southdale. We had the parents and the money and the funds and the fun, and it was all there, and it just exploded in something so big, and I'm so glad I had those years at Southdale to finish my career. I just want to tell you all that there is no better district, I mean this, than Kettering. It looked at someone like me who was different, and it opened its arms. And I took that difference, and with all your help, I was able to make a difference. I thank you.
Wow. Congratulations, Josh. When the selection committee was reviewing the letters submitted in support of Josh, a comment in one of the letters really caught our attention. Dory shared a little bit of this comment, but I wanted to repeat it again because I think it's really powerful. Quote, I recently retired on July 31st, 2022. After 50 years in education, 31 of those years in administration, 18 of those years as superintendent. Now, if you think, you probably can figure out who this quote is from. I have observed and evaluated over 1,000 staff members, and I can absolutely, positively, unequivocally state, beyond the shadow of a doubt, that Josh Stuckey is by far the best elementary teacher I have had the privilege to work with in 50 years. That right there says it all. Congratulations. When we entered the recital hall this evening, we walked past the Roush Hall of Fame wall. Our 3 inductees will now join the other outstanding educators by having their plaques added to that wall as well. They will also be given a duplicate plaque to take home with them, in addition to receiving the letters of support submitted for their nominations and a Hall of Fame lapel pin. It is a pleasure and an honor to welcome Diane, Louise, and Josh into the Chester A. Roush Educational Hall of Fame. All 3 of these inductees, or celebrities, as Louise has named them, all 3 of these celebrities are so very deserving of this honor. Please help me congratulate them again for their outstanding accomplishments.